Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Harrington, and the book that I read for this project is called The Sirens of Titan. I will be presenting some of the most significant set related questions posed by this novel. I feel like explaining the questions that the author, Kurt Vonnegut, meant to raise with this novel is the best way to kind of relate it to the themes and topics of our class. If you've read any other Vonnegut novels, you'll know that he usually has a semi crazy plot, but with a very clear message, moral, or takeaway. But I felt that with this book, that was not the case. This novel tells a very crazy story that involves travel across solar system and even through time that serve to make the reader think about difficult ethical problems and existential questions that do not have definite or easy answers. I'll be discussing each of these questions hidden in the meaning of the book and how they relate to our class as well as to the world today. So, just to give you guys some background about the book, it was written in 1959, and the plot spans across 40 years. And the three main characters are Malachi Constant. He is a very rich man, actually the richest, and he's revered for being a hero in Earth's war against Mars. And then there's Winston Rumford. He is also a rich man who actually is the one that controlled the future and created the Martian invasion of Earth and started the war. And then there's Salo the robot, who's from a different planet, who caused Winston to cause the invasion. So it's kind of difficult to follow, but each of the characters are really powerful figures, and they're more powerful than the people around them. However, they don't realize that their actions and decisions are being controlled by powers higher than themselves that they didn't even know existed. So I know questions usually go at the end of the presentation, but these are the questions that I'm going to be talking about and focusing on throughout my presentation because they are the questions that were posed by the author throughout the novel subtly. So the four questions that I found are: does free will truly exist? Is it divine favor or luck that dictates what happens to us? How does wealth influence power? And are truths absolute? These are questions that we've discussed in one form or another on different topics in our class, so we know that they do not have easy or distinct answers. So the first question I'm going to be focusing on is free will. Is the future already determined, and if it is, does free will exist? So in this novel, free will does not exist for anyone. One of the main characters, Winston Rumford, he built a spacecraft which allows him and his dog, who I think is a really underrated part of the story, to travel through space and time and see into the past, present, and future. Because of that, he can manipulate things and he can prophesize to people what's going to happen to them, causing them to revere him as a prophet or a god. Because the future is already determined, all of the choices made by the people around him don't actually matter because the consequences of their actions are pre-written. This is kind of relevant to the different theories of ethics because if things don't matter, then we don't have to worry about the decisions that we make. It doesn't matter how our decisions affect other people because if it's already pre-written, then we don't have control. This kind of takes the power out of lives, and in doing so, it takes the purpose out of humanity. This question is raised in the novel by the Martian invasion that Winston sets into play onto Earth. He then creates a church which is supposed to unify the people of Earth against the Martians, which is kind of meant to poke fun at organized religion. It's actually supposed to make readers question if God and free will can coexist. If there is a God and he already wrote the future, is it possible that we can even make our own decisions? This kind of relates to the ideas of Nietzsche because it makes us think that if God and free will can exist together, then we have to be in control of our own lives. Therefore, God must be dead. The problem with this theme, though, is that a question like this doesn't really have an answer, and Vonnegut isn't really suggesting one. He's just letting the readers think about what the possibilities are and if free will and God can exist together. So the second question that's definitely posed throughout the novel is linked to the existence of higher powers like God. And it is, do things happen to us because of luck or good fortune, or is it because of divine favor? And if it's divine favor, does that mean that bad luck means that God no longer loves us? In this novel, Vonnegut makes the point that many people don't credit luck for their success. They believe that they earned their success or it was given to them by God because he favors them. One of the main characters, Malachi, truly thinks that he is divinely favored and that all of the good things that have happened to him and all of his riches come from luck. However, the other main character, Winston, kind of has the outlook that since he can see into the past, present, and future because of his spacecraft, that you can make your own luck and that you have the power over your own life. This kind of brings us to the idea that we talked about in class, which is from Aesop's Fables, The Frogs That Desired a King, saying that is no ruler better than having a cruel ruler? Is it better to just not believe that there is a God and that you can control your life and make your own luck than to think that there is a God who would purposely bring you malfortune? Even though Vonnegut tries to assert through the characters that we can take power into our own hands and control our own lives, the novel also has constantly higher powers manipulating each of the characters at play. This is supposed to be ironic, showing us that whether we believe in higher powers or not, none of us know the answers for sure. This leads to the third question that Vonnegut poses in the book, which is how wealth and fortune impact how we interact with others and how much control that has over our lives. Throughout the course, we talked a lot about how technology and wealth changes who has power in the world. Advances in technology can lead to shifts in power and rises of country or even individuals. A good example of this is Oppenheimer, and once he gave the United States the power of the atomic bomb, we were the most powerful country in the world. All of these advances are a result of wealth. The wealthier you are, the more money you have to pour into research, which is critical for giving you the technology you need to gain power. In the novel, Winston Rummerford is so powerful that he can travel through space and time, but this is because he was wealthy enough to get an aircraft and training to know how to do this. Therefore, he then uses this aircraft to travel through space and time and to create a situation where Martians are attacking the Earth. This gives him control over what people think of him and what happens to people in the future. This is an extreme example, however, this just shows how being wealthy and having access to technology can give you power not only over your own life, but over the lives of other people and what they think and what they believe. This leads us to a question that we did talk about, which is, can governments do this? Which leads me to my next point. Technology and power are also linked in the same way. Advancements in technology allow for people or governments or whoever has power to control what we believe. While Vonnegut's example of a Martian invasion is a bit far-fetched, the underlying message is that technology is power, and if we allow for technological advancements to go so far but only give few access to them, such as those in the government, then they can possibly take that power for granted. This threat exists in technologies in our own government, and while technology is growing, the power is growing as well. Technology can lead to foreseen consequences to those who control it and unforeseen consequences to those who are enslaved by it. So the final question raised in Vonnegut's novel is truth absolute, or do our perspectives create the truths that we believe? The character Winston Rummerford and Malachi Constant were both able to gain perspective and truth from other planets, in this example, seeing things that they believe to be true and how these things are very different from what they knew to be absolutely true on Earth. Vonnegut uses this kind of to show the reader that we have no way of knowing that what we believe is true or not. This is reminiscent of Plato's story, The Allegory of the Cave. Vonnegut suggests that there may be no such thing as an absolute truth, as in this quote, "The universe is an awfully big place. There is room enough for an awful lot of people to be right about an awful lot of things." So in conclusion, I really liked that Vonnegut used this novel to pose questions that are kind of hard and even difficult to think about, and questions that he didn't really provide an answer to. While he didn't provide an answer, he kind of gives us the possibility to see different answers and how they could impact ourselves and those around us. Questions of free will, the existence of God, the power of wealth and technology are really relevant to today's society and to our class. I also recognize that Vonnegut uses the themes of love and compassion a lot in his novels, and that was definitely evident, especially compassion, in this novel too. And towards the end of the book, he ends with this quote, which says, "A purpose of human life, no matter who is controlling it, is to love whoever is around to be loved." So I think that the message overall, even though none of his questions have answers, can kind of be summed up in that quote. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed.